What's going on, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of Everything Virtual. My name is Zain. I'm here with Ronnie, and this is your weekly VR chat, I guess, is what we're doing now. I mean, I don't know. We've been doing this for a while, so it's
Sure.
but we talk everything VR here. It's funny, this started off as a Vive show, but we love VR as a whole. And this is one long intro. I'm sorry, Ronnie, I didn't even get to you. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. The weather was nice here, and just got back from being outside and now back to recording and everything. It's just I'm in a good mood.
It's nice to have those like early spring days in Chicago. Actually, this is like the first day of spring, so it's good to have it there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Cool, man. All right, well, we have a fun topic today. I mean, we've been talking about what to expect from PlayStation and PSVR in the future. And there was some big news that dropped. I think I partially covered it during the VR news roundup earlier in the week, but wanted to do a deeper dive into your and my thoughts on the new PS5 controller. And so let me go ahead and bring up a visual. This is off of the PlayStation blog, and I'm going to let you start. What are your first initial reactions? What are some what are some things that stuck out to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, my first reaction upon seeing it was, I'm very excited because they look like, the standard. It looks like VR is finally getting a standard controller.
Yep.
And this is, I mean, we had the wands originally with the Vive, and Oculus touch controllers came out, and I think most people, for most uses, the touch controllers were kind of better than the wands, in my opinion. And a lot of that stuff kind of trickled down into the Index and eventually the successors to the initial Oculus touch controllers. Since then, we have Microsoft mixed reality controllers that are very similar. Same thing with the Reverb from HP, and so everyone seems to finally be kind of set on VR controllers fit into your hand, and they have a joystick for your thumb and some buttons and some triggers. And
it looks like there's two thumb buttons, and then you got a trigger and that grip button, right?
Yep. And then it sounds like it does also do finger touch detection. Now, I don't know how precise that's going to be, if it's going to be as analog as it is on the Index controllers, or if it's going to be just more similar to the type of kind of touch capacity type sensors that were on the original Oculus touch controllers and the successors. Because even the Oculus controllers, I mean, when you touch the controller, it knows that you're touching it. It doesn't really track your fingers per se.
Yeah,
I kind of got the sense that it might be something like that. But I mean, either way, to be honest with you, I think this is enough, and I think that this is great because I think the other thing that besides just the general layout of the controllers, I think this also confirms that it's going to be inside out tracked. Because there are no lights or anything like that, so it's not going to be based on a camera system like the PlayStation Eye with the original PlayStation VR.
Yep.
So I think those were my two big takeaways. Is great. These are real VR controllers for the PlayStation VR, and so I think that means PlayStation VR 2 or whatever it's going to be called is going to be a legitimate contender in the VR space for people that want high-end VR experiences. I mean, going forward as we move away from kind of Steam-based VR and more into, Oculus kind of moving away to the Quest headset. And I mean, Sony might really be in the position to make a major play with their next PlayStation VR.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, they already made such a huge splash on the first PSVR that came out. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them put in quite a bit more in terms of resources, advertising, all of that stuff, and development just to really get their to get their VR headset or hardware to that next level, right? Because that's always the one thing that was the knock against PSVR. It was it's not PC VR though. It's super cool and it's got a bunch of games, but it's not PC VR.
And it was hamstrung technology. It was using the old PlayStation Move controllers and Move technology to kind of retroactively make VR possible. Whereas this, it clearly is Sony working from the ground up with VR in mind.
Yeah. And the thing is, they know that there's a market for it now, right? So in terms of the resources, like I was saying, there's you know that they're going to be backing this quite a bit, and obviously Oculus is putting a lot of money into this as well. So yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. I think one of my biggest takeaways was we were kind of talking about it on the group chat with like just the standardization, right? I look at that and I'm just like, oh, like that looks like it could be used with an Oculus Quest, right? Because it's got the same kind of layout. It's got a cool thing where you kind of put your hands through the little ring there, right?
Yep.
which to me I was like, oh man, it's a really cool design, very sleek, very and again, you know, we don't know anything about performance right now, but from the design, it looks cool. It looks very much in line with what we have come to expect from VR controllers, and you know, they've evolved quite a bit. Now, I love the wands, the Vive wands. They're classics to me, right?
I still have mine.
It's great. And so so do I. But I'm really glad that we are using the kind of thumbstick or the joystick for thumbs. To me, it just feels much more natural coming from gaming platforms, right? Where you're using those controllers for movement. So it's great, man. I'm really, really excited. I'm glad that they're sharing this stuff now. And I know that doesn't mean that it's going to be coming down the line super fast or very soon. But just the fact that they have the design out here, they are officially sharing it on their blog, gives me something to look forward to, right? Like PlayStation 5 is out now. I mean, not everybody who wants one has one. I don't know how that whole thing is playing out still, but you know, this is something that I could see happening not this year, but as like on a 2-year cycle off of, you know, 2-year off cycle from when the console comes out. I can see this coming out next year, and for us to be getting little, even if it's just little drips of information and tidbits at this time, I think it's really exciting to see and very energizing for the community. I.e. myself, right? Like I look at that, I'm just like, man, I need to get a PS5 now.
No, same here. I mean, looking at these with you, I'm like, man, they look odd. Like I'm imagining myself. I mean, let's be real. Like with any console, with any type of gaming platform, it's really all about the games. And Sony makes really good first-party titles. Like a lot of their exclusives are really awesome, and there were so many good ones on PlayStation VR that I missed out on because they weren't ported over to the PC. And so I mean, if they bring it like they brought it then, and it looks like they're going to be, you know, spending more money, like you said, than the first gen to really make the second generation of VR really special. I think there's going to be a lot of really great games on this platform. And so if the capability of the hardware is as good as the rest of the VR systems out there, then this is going to be something that anybody that's serious about it doesn't want to miss out on. And another thing I think is interesting is just the fact that, kind of like you said, PlayStation 5 is still, you know, pretty much sold out everywhere, still really hard to get. So I'm curious what's motivating them to share so much details about their VR stuff right now. Because clearly I mean, from a marketing perspective, they kind of already have their hands full. So I wonder, I mean, this is always it's not a conspiracy theory, but this is always me like speculating on, like I wonder what they know that I don't know about what's going to be coming in the near future, or what potentially might be announced with so many other players, you know, moving into the space. And
well, I'm curious. So what's your conspiracy theory then?
No, just like maybe they've heard rumblings about what Apple's going to be doing, or maybe like I don't know. Like I just think it's fascinating to me. And like kind of on a side note, we weren't planning on talking about this, but there was this kind of like half story that came out that I saw on Upload VR last week, where I guess like I think it was maybe a Portuguese Xbox Series S or something. It was an Xbox in another territory that had all of its menus translated, and you know, like
it had the VR error message, right?
Yeah, it had a VR error message, and
I covered that in the news update, but it ended up not being anything serious, right? They
came
out
and
ended up not being
serious. Like apparently that's just like a common mistranslation that happens with headsets. Like a lot of times when headset gets translated, it gets translated as VR for some reason, and blah blah blah. So Xbox even came out and like doubled down and was like, we have no firm plans for VR at this time, which is like, and everybody's like, in our space is kind of like hitting their head, like, but why? Like,
yeah, well, we've been talking about this, haven't
yeah.
we? Right?
Like it would just be easy. Like even if they said something like, "You never know what's going to be in it," like literally their message back was like, "We have no plans." Like at this time.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if they don't have any plans until they have plans they can announce, right? You know, and it's one of those things where it's just like, let's undersell, over deliver at this point. So yeah, I mean, it's just hard. I'm with you because it's hard to.
I'm not even saying they need to do what Sony. Yeah, I'm not even saying they need to do what Sony's doing and develop their own headset with their own controllers and all of that. Yeah. I just think there must be a way to just make it. It's a PC basically in a little box, right? Yeah. and they have the Windows platform, right? So there's already all this software that kind of works both ways. So like I can't imagine why they couldn't just like, oh, why not make like some of these Windows mixed reality headsets or something, just like the headset work with like a flight simulator or like Forza or something. Yeah. Like literally like start baby steps and just say, you know, those headsets that are compatible with our games on the PC. Well, if you plug it into the Xbox, it works too. So that's the only thing. Like, I'm not expecting them to like go all out and announce something big like Sony, but like,
I agree with you. Like, look, from a hardware software perspective, like Microsoft's been in the game for a long time. Like this would not be difficult for them. It's just a matter of putting in the effort to come up with like, what exactly do we want out of this space? Yeah. So, you know, in that sense, I'm all about it. Where it gets interesting is what you had just mentioned, in the sense of like, they came out and they just totally doubled down on like, we are not doing anything. Like you see our competitor over there, you see what they're doing, and everybody's getting so hyped up about it, and there's all this like press and whatever. Yeah, we're not doing that. But that to me, I'm just like, there's no way that they're like head in the sand. We're not going to pay attention to this. So again, to me, I'm just going to take that as like, from a legal perspective, we're not doing anything until we're doing something, right? That we can announce. But it was just an interesting kind of thing that played out where I got excited about it, because I thought, it was just like, wait, we've been talking about where is Microsoft in this race? And I guess we'll have to see once they can announce something, and if there's anything to announce.
And the other thing I was going to mention, if you go back to the picture of the controllers, I just thought this was interesting. Is like, clearly this is what, you know, the design's going to be and what they're working on. This is announced by Sony, but I agreed with someone on Twitter. It was actually one Hamza, which is the developer behind, Racket NX. Mm-hmm. I had interviewed them, I think, a while back. But anyways, on Twitter, they had mentioned, because there was some debate going back and forth on whether these were renders or whether they were real. And I'm pretty convinced, like one Hamza was saying, the company, that these are probably renders. So like there were some telltale signs on like just the way the hands looked, and like the wrist position and these kind of things. Like I off the top of my head, I don't remember exactly what, but some of the details and like the wrinkles in the fingers and the smoothing of certain like shadows, and like they're just like, yeah, I would bet my money, like, trust us, like we've been in this industry a long time, like these are renders. Yeah. And which is not a big deal one way or another, but so these are probably aren't actual real things quite yet.
No, but the thing is, like, to me that doesn't really matter, because they shared it. So they very much intend to create these in the physical form, right?
And everyone was super excited about them too. Like it'd be one thing if they showed this and people are like, "Oh, what is that?" But like, I think everybody in our community got really excited about these. So you would imagine that they're gonna be very close to this, hopefully, when they actually release. So
yeah, for sure. Cool. So you also mentioned the Palmer Luckey Twitter or tweets,
which I thought was just really fascinating. Like this was a couple days after the announcement. And you know, I'm on Twitter a lot. Everything Vive is our handle on Twitter. At Everything Vive for people that are new.
Let me go to Palmer's tweets. All right, so there's two. So I don't know if you want to go through them.
Sure. So
what stuck out to you?
So the first one he basically just said this is a massive step up from the old PlayStation Move ones, which I totally agree. And he says he can't take any credit for inspiring the work of their designers, but he's very happy to see Oculus Touch DNA front and center. Too many VR controllers try to differentiate for the sake of difference. And I agree with that. I mean, that goes along the same sentiments that we shared earlier about how it's just nice that everybody's on board with a single layout, because that means that the software, and actually Thomas Gwynn, the developer behind Containment Initiative. He tweeted back at us as well and said something like when I had tweeted something about how nice it is to finally have kind of, some parity between all the different VR systems now, the major ones. And he said, totally, especially for developers. Because think about it, this makes total sense, especially
it makes it so much easier for them.
Especially for like indie developers that don't have as much time to have to like rework their games to work on massively different. I mean, the PlayStation Move controllers worked so much differently than your typical, controllers. And so even if this is going to be different, the fact that the layout's the same really cuts down on a lot of work that these people have to do to port games from one platform to the other, hopefully.
Absolutely,
so, but it was the second tweet actually. So after this tweet, Palmer Luckey mentioned his follow-up tweet. It said, the through band grip scheme, which I can only imagine is when you put your hand through that ring.
Yeah, so good for weight balance.
Yeah, it's so good for weight balance and great tracking without compromising on most two-hand interactions. I have some eerily similar prototypes in the archive. Interesting to imagine alternative history. So sounds like, number one, Sony really is trying, because if we know that Oculus put in a lot of time and effort into designing the original touch controllers, and really their touch controllers in a lot of ways, like the ring that were on the original touch controllers were much more around your hands than the later designed versions for inside-out tracking. So I'm curious to see exactly how these end up working with tracking, like where the sensors are and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I just thought that was really fascinating that, everybody working on these different VR controllers kind of end up roughly in the same place. So that tells you that we're slowly but surely kind of getting there, right?
Yeah, and it's such a double-edged sword too, because on this podcast we have definitely, and I don't want to say guilty because it's part of what comes with the territory, but like we have talked about wanting more innovation and wanting, like, not necessarily that we don't use the word differentiation, right? But it's just like we want innovation, and we want to see companies doing stuff to really push the industry forward, to push the technology forward. Yet at the same time, there are certain areas where that doesn't make any sense, right? And I think it's important for folks like us who are championing this, and then obviously for folks like Thomas and all the developers who are actually in the weeds, really making these things possible, where sometimes it's better not to innovate, right? Like on certain things, right? Like, I don't know that we'll need anything more than a thumbstick for a while, or if we'll ever need more than 2 buttons or the side grip, or like, so right now with the standards that are being set, like, I'm cool with that. And I think it's great that as a community, the response has been somewhat along those lines, right? I think it would have been really interesting to see a response from folks who were just like, oh, these look like touch controllers. That's kind of like lame, right?
Yeah.
And sorry for my poor accent. I don't even know who I'm trying to imitate, but but it's just like, I get it. And especially getting more context from indie developers, it makes a lot of sense. So, for me, I'm just trying to feel like we need to balance where we're coming at this with, and in terms of like innovation and industry standards on one side and the other. Like, it's just cool to see. I'm excited for it, and I'm glad that it makes things easier for us to innovate in other areas.
No, and if they get the feel of these controllers right, like, you never know what a controller is actually going to feel like until you have it in your hand. There could be, but I mean, Sony knows what they're doing with controllers, right? As long as it feels good in the hand, I think these have the potential to be some of the best VR controllers, assuming the tracking's there too. Because really the adaptive triggers and the advanced haptics that are in the PlayStation 5 controller now, those are making their way over, like we had talked about in the past, to the VR controllers. And those really do like kind of add something quite a bit to the game. I mean, as far as like the adaptive triggers, it's so cool. I don't know if you remember talking about that, but literally they can put click, like through software, they can make it click, they can make it stop at certain points, they can make it like more or less pressure, like they can do things with the trigger that makes it feel like it's actually like doing something or changing. And then the haptics too are like, I mean, to the point where like with Astrobot, for example, like one of the PlayStation 5 launch titles, it's like you'll be walking and you can actually feel like the different types of materials that you're walking on, and like it's actually nuanced enough to where it feels convincing, like you're walking on wood versus like metal versus, and that stuff is going to be great in VR, I would imagine.
Oh yeah. Very cool.
So I think, yeah, this is a really good, I mean, not to mention Astrobot's a good example. Sony had some cool platforming games that were in VR. And one of the cool things about, I wouldn't say it's a cool thing, but it was just because of what PlayStation VR was, there were some games that used the wands and tried to emulate kind of a more, typical VR 6 degrees of motion type of controller. But then there were a lot of games that just, you would sit with the DualShock controller in your hand and just use the sticks that way, because the Move controllers didn't have any of that. Well, this allows for both. Now, when you have the sticks on the wands, on the controllers, you have complete movement of each hand, but you still have the ability to play traditional games with those joysticks. And so I think this is going to be really freeing for developers working on PlayStation VR titles. I mean, just to think how amazing a lot of the games were on PlayStation VR. And that was with all of that, kind of data technology. Yeah. So now that they're going to have the ability to work with controllers that really allow you to feel like you're in the game, just like we're used to on the PC and on standalone VR, I think this is really going to be good for PlayStation.
Yeah, like I said, I'm excited for it. Speaking as candidly as I can, right? I always thought PSVR was cool, but there was never a push to get it, right? Like I had a Vive, then I got a Quest, and I was like, PSVR is cool, but I know its limitations. And now that we're getting into the second gen or half gen, whatever, 1.5, we're really starting to see things take off. And obviously PlayStation had a low bar that they set for themselves, whether that was intentional or not. Like that's just what it was with the older technology. So now to kind of be up there with hardware that is able to compete with some of the bigger or more established platforms out there will be really interesting.
Totally agree.
Cool, man. Well, that's all I had. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to mention on PSVR.
I think that's pretty solid. Now I'm just excited, just like you. As I learn more and more about PlayStation VR 2, it really makes me want to get a PlayStation 5 and be ready for this thing. So I'm not like, because it's not out yet, I'm not like hunting for one yet. But hopefully we'll get to the point where we're able to just buy these things. It has to happen eventually. Yeah,
right? I've been saying that I want one since November, but I also haven't looked since November.
Yeah. Every now and then I'm like, oh, surely that I can just go and try to buy one now, right? And I'll go and look, and the scalping prices are starting to get more reasonable, I feel like, but still nothing is. No, I'm not saying I would. I'm just saying that's a signal to me that, these things are probably coming into stock more often. Like maybe if I was, a little bit more hardcore about this, I'd be able to track one down. But
yeah, I'm not that desperate, and I think that's probably a combination of the time available, but also I feel like just the backlog of games that I'm trying to get through. Dude, there's a ton of stuff on VR. So you can totally understand.
No, and now I know you have a Switch, right?
I do have a Switch. Yeah.
I've been wanting a Switch for a while, just because for whatever reason, like every now and then there's a Nintendo game, and I'm like a sucker for Mario games and those kind of things. So every now and then there's a few games here and there that I've always wanted to play, and I haven't had a Switch. And I keep waiting because supposedly there's a new revision of the Switch coming out at the end of the year. So
exciting.
For someone that has a Switch, it's not it's
there's
nothing, right?
there's no incentive.
But for someone that's been waiting, now I'm like, man, like how am I gonna find time and money to like buy and play all these things? Like,
I just want to get excited about Switch VR that doesn't come in like a cardboard box.
Yeah. Good luck with that, I guess.
I think we're gonna end up waiting for that, but that's fine because we have a lot going on here with the Index, with the Quest 2, with PSVR. And I know we can't stop talking about what's going on in Apple headquarters behind locked doors. So it was funny because you mentioned earlier the whole like conspiracy theory and all that. And I was just like, wait, what if we like really, really speculated that maybe Sony did know what Apple was up to? And they're like, you know what? We just need to grab as much profit as we can from this round and let's just release it ASAP because Apple's going to come in and destroy it. But that might just be the Apple fanboy.
By the way, a lot of the rumors since we talked about the Apple stuff last time seem to be bringing the price down to 1,000.
That seems much more doable.
I don't know how credible those rumors are. I just for a little bit there, I saw rumors suggesting a lot more.
We saw 3,000, I think.
Yeah, 3,000. But for some reason lately, I've been seeing 1,000 thrown around a lot. So take it for what it's worth.
Yeah, we'll wait until it's official. To me, like if they are replacing the phone, right, eventually is what they were saying, or at least put down at some point. Then I would assume it has to be around the same price point.
Yeah,
not 3 times it. So
that makes sense.
Cool, man. Well, this was fun as always. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you are looking for a free, easy way to support the channel, please subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know what you guys think about the PSVR 2 controllers. Oh, that's such a tongue twister right there. PSVR 2 controllers.
Just wait until they actually, I wonder what the actual name is going to be. Because then we'll have to switch, all of a sudden our brains are just going to have to.
Yeah. Well, we'll do that when we have to. But appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. And so that's for people on YouTube. For those of you listening on the podcast, the OGs, we love you too. Hit us up on Twitter, Everything Vive, and we'll continue the conversation there. Ronnie, you have a good one. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you guys very, very soon.